Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the July Dibble Institute webinar. I am Rachel Spasek-Lupston. I'm the Director of Research and Training here at the Dibble Institute, and I am thrilled to welcome you to today's webinar, Exploring the Importance of a Trusted Adult, with the wonderful Kelly Luckett, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. But before I do, a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. If you're having a hard time hearing the presentation, the email invitation you got provides a phone number that you can use to call in and access audio for today's session. If there's anything else that's technically wrong or if that's not working, we encourage you to sign out and log back in, as that typically solves the problem. We want to take a moment to just see, out of those of you who are here today, how many of you are new to the Dibble Institute, are new to our webinars. So if you can, take a second to locate the hand function in your GoToWebinar control panel. If you can go ahead and raise your hand if you are new to the Dibble Institute. We'd love to see who's a first timer with us today. Could be that my computer is lagging, but I'm not seeing a lot of new folks here. So welcome back to those of you who are used to being here on our second Wednesday. And for those of you who are new, who I'm just somehow missing because of the lovely little lag in technology. There we go. There are some hands coming up here. Welcome to those of you who are new. We're glad to have you in today's session. I want to point out there is a handout provided in today's session. You can also find that in the GoToWebinar control panel. So if you want to go ahead and download that, it'll also be sent in the recording that you'll receive a couple of days after the presentation. We're also going to be doing some polls in today's webinar, so look out for those. They'll populate on your screen. And we will be having you ask questions in the question box. There is going to be some time at the end of this session for some Q&A. And like I said, there will be a recording, including the slides and the handout that will be sent out several days after the webinar is completed, so keep an eye out for that. So again, a couple of you are new to us, so we want to go ahead and take a moment to introduce the Dibble Institute. For those of you who may be wondering how we got our name, on the slide here, you're going to see a picture of Charlie and Helen Dibble. They are the founders of the Dibble Institute, and Charlie did a lot of work with youth during his retirement, and he saw a lot of them having difficulties around their relationships or difficulties when their parents were having challenges in their own relationships, that it was having an impact on their children. So Charlie had the brilliant idea to translate research into teaching tools that could then be made widely available. So the Dibble Institute isn't a direct service provider, rather we develop research-based practices and make them available to individuals and organizations like many of you who are here today. So a little bit more about the Dibble Institute. We are a national independent nonprofit organization. You'll see from the map here that we have clients who are in all 50 states providing direct services. And last year, based on our very conservative estimates, we believe our clients reached around 115,000 youth based on materials purchased. So we just want to take a moment to say how grateful we are and thank you to those of you who are doing the important work with young people. So thank you for that. So what guides the Dibble Institute? One of the things that really guides us is our mission, which is to empower young people with the skills to build and sustain healthy interpersonal and romantic relationships. We know that having conversations around these topics with them pulls a lot of levers. So pregnancy prevention, dating violence prevention, mental health, job readiness, and so much more. And in addition to our mission, we're also really guided by our values. So our first value is that we're big believers in research. All of our programs are research-based, and we continue to strive to have our programs evaluated at the highest level to demonstrate their impact and their effectiveness. And what that means is sometimes there are updates made to our programs as we learn new information. So that's why you might see revisions or just exciting research that we find that we are sharing with you. The next is that we believe in safe, stable, and healthier nurturing families, and those families come in all different types of family formations. And this is our goal for young people, to be raised in these families. And then lastly, we believe that relationship education is for everyone. All of us can improve our relationships, and we make sure that our programs are reflective of that. So that's a little bit about the Dibble Institute, but you're here today to hear Kelly Luckett give her presentation on exploring the importance of a trusted adult. I want to do a brief intro. Kelly, who just popped up on the screen, she is the Senior Director of Community Integrated Health at the YMCA of Greater Louisville, where, and I feel like I have to make sure Louisville when I say that to do it justice. But there she leads the YMCA Healthy Relationships Project. She has a master's degree in art therapy counseling and a background in trauma therapy and youth development. She brings over 15 years of experience in her work supporting young people. She's also led the implementation of love notes across a variety of settings, innovating delivery through peer facilitation and camp-based models. She is a Dibble Institute training specialist, so give her a shout out for the work that she does with us directly as well. And her work centers on creating safe, supportive environments where you can build confidence, form healthy relationships, and not surprisingly, connect with trusted adults. So with that, I will hand it over to Kelly.
Hi, Rachel, thank you so much for the introduction, and so happy to see so many people here on this webinar that are also interested in exploring the importance of a trusted adult. I believe that some of this will be not new for you, and then some of it may be really new information. We developed this presentation or parts of this presentation to really work on growing trusted adults in our branches, growing trusted adults in our community. And so next slide, if you can. Again, I think Rachel did a really great job introducing me, so I don't need to go over this too much, but I will say that I have been working with Love Notes since 2021, and through that we have had a TPP grant, and we're currently in an SRA grant, and I, through that work, have really leaned into trusted adults through Love Notes, and then also really have seen the transformative power that having a trusted adult can have for our young people. And so really wanted to focus on how can we grow our trusted adults in a way, how can we train them, how can we make it so that there are not so many barriers for our young people to have trusted adults. Next slide, please. And you'll probably notice these are the same objectives that you saw when you signed up, but we're going to identify the key qualities and behaviors of a trusted adult, understand the importance and the impact, and recognizing barriers that youth have to identifying a trusted adult. If any of you have done Love Notes, or if you've done other programs where you've asked teens about trusted adults, you'll know that sometimes they have a hard time recognizing or identifying those trusted adults. And before we get started with our presentation, I really want to check in with you all just to see how charged your battery is. So this is going to be a poll. We know this is kind of the end of the day. We're kind of might be, ready to go home. So would love to see how charged is your battery so that I can know like how much energy I need to bring to keep you all engaged. So 1 is low and 5 is high. All right, so we got a lot of people who are kind of in that middle. Some people with very high charged batteries. If we were in a room together, I know I would be absorbing some of that energy because I definitely need it sometimes. And then I do see some of those people that are maybe sitting about where I am too, where it's like, oh, it is the end of the day for me, and I'm ready to go home and kind of relax and be at my end of the day rituals. We have another poll real quick on our next slide, just asking who was your trusted adult or mentor for you when you were a young person. So think back to when you were a young person. Was your trusted adult a parent or guardian? Was it a teacher, somebody at your school? Was it a youth worker, maybe in like a community program? Was it somebody else that I didn't list there? Or did you not have one? Would love to hear from you to know who your trusted adult was when you were a young person. And it looks like a lot of people had their parents were trusted adults, which is great, about 50% of you. 10% at school, 6% was youth workers, 16% was other, but like 20% didn't have a trusted adult growing up. And I, I'm curious if this would be similar if we gave our young people a poll today to see what theirs was like. I'm curious if we would see something similar for our young people. But I'd really love you to keep that in mind as we're going through this presentation. Many of us work at community organizations where we can be a trusted adult for our young people. Some of us might work at schools, you might work in other settings, and many of us might be parents. And so just how important it is for our young people to have that person to go to and feel safe. So keep that in mind as we're going through. And first, we're going to start talking about what is a trusted adult so that we can kind of all have some shared language about it, what qualities make a trusted adult, all of that. So we're going to kind of set the bar as to what a trusted adult is. I do want to say that a lot of the information that I have in this webinar, this was information that was gathered by young people. So it is their definition of what a trusted adult is. And it is definitely enlightening to hear it from their perspective. So first we're going to watch a short video about the importance of a trusted adult and just some statistics, and then we'll go into it.
Did you know that having at least one trusted adult at school can greatly impact your experience in a positive way? There's a tremendous amount of data saying that you will be set up to thrive in middle, high school, and college if you can name a trusted adult at school. Here's the problem. Currently, on average, only 40% of students say that they can name a trusted adult at school. What? This is not okay. The team at One Trusted Adult is on a mission to ensure that every young person on the planet can name a trusted adult, and part of that mission is working with all adults to grow capacity and commitment to show up for you and all youth in the best ways possible. But here's the thing. The adults can only go 50% of the way. That's right, 50% of the way. In order to reap the benefits of having trusted adults in your corner, you must choose to invest in healthy relationships with adults at your school. You must choose to go the other 50% of the way. Here's the other thing. You get to choose. You get to choose who you trust. This video isn't about being assigned to an advisor or someone in the building. This is about you having the independence and agency to grow your network of trusted mentors and supporters, a skill that you will absolutely need for the rest of your life. But what exactly does trust mean? We have conducted hundreds of interviews, and here's what we have heard. Trusted adults make us feel safe. They are fair and predictable. They know me and notice me. They are invested in my success. They make time for me when I need them. They challenge me when I need it and celebrate me when I deserve it. They just listen. And we hear that these trusted school adults show up as teachers, paras, principals, school counselors, bus drivers, crossing guards, coaches, cooks, custodians, advisors, and more. What we have learned is that trusted adults live the ABCs. They are accessible, boundaried, and caring. Accessibility means that they are available and approachable. It may not mean you have access to them 24/7, but it means you know how to schedule time with them, and when you are with them, they are fully present and you can sense that they are sincere and reliable. Boundaried means that they respect your body, space, opinions, identity, and voice. Boundaries are an agreed upon way to live and work together, and they keep everyone safe. It's important to note that boundaries you share with at-home adults will be different than boundaries you share with adults outside of your home. Trusted adults should be having conversations with you about these boundaries, and the comfort and safety of both parties should always be the number one priority. Care means that they are genuinely interested and invested in your well-being. Care doesn't just mean comforting you when times are tough. It also means challenging you to think bigger, holding you accountable, asking you to reflect, helping you achieve your goals, upholding rules to keep you safe, and just listening. Guess what's interesting about the ABCs? They apply to all healthy relationships, not just trusted school adult to student, but to any and all relationships, parent, guardian to child, friend to friend, even romantic relationships. They all require paying attention to show how accessible we are, how we express our care, and how we talk about and uphold our personal boundaries. Don't ever forget these ABCs. You will need them forever. Okay, here's 3 things you must do following this video. 1. Thank trusted adults who show up for you now. If you thank them, you are sending a message that you appreciate what they have already done and you are hoping they keep showing up for you. If you can't name anyone, reach out to your school counselor and brainstorm who might be a good fit to connect with in your school. 2. Assess other relationships in your life. Where can you lean in and build a stronger sense of trust? What relationships need an ABC tune-up? How are those around you available? Upholding personal boundaries and showing their care. Think beyond school too. 3. If not already, you will soon be a trusted adult for younger people. You are likely already a trusted peer, sibling, classmate, or teammate. Keep showing up using the ABCs for those around you. And if you aren't sure exactly how, a good motto to live by is to be who you need and be who you needed.
And you can tell that's kind of geared towards youth and teens, but I just love that aspect of be who you need and be who you needed. As we could see from our poll that we took, there are many of us that didn't have who we needed as a young person. And so it is really important to think about like what qualities our young people need from us. And I think it's really interesting, especially for people who maybe are new to youth development or work with youth. Sometimes they get into a thought process where they feel like they need to be their friend. But it's very clear that with a trusted adult, it isn't a friendship, right? It's a trusted adult relationship with those ABCs. It's also really important to realize that the trusted adult is chosen by the young person as a safe figure. So that chosen part's really important. It's not necessarily the advisor or the mentor that we're assigning to them in our community partnerships. It's not necessarily the teacher that they're assigned to. It could be somebody who works in the cafeteria that they see once a day, but who really listens without judgment, agenda, or expectation, with the sole purpose of supporting and encouraging positivity within a young person's life. So that definition is from the Young Minds Initiative. And again, that was definitely developed by young people. These are the words that they chose. This is what they said a trusted adult was. And I think it's really important to see it through their eyes, not through our eyes. Next slide, please. So again, it's not people who have been assigned through a formal program through their school. It is adults who they independently choose and trust. In general, it's about the relationship between the trusted adult and the young person, and that matters more than whether they share similar life experiences, background, or look and sound the same. We know that representation is not as simple as the color of your skin. It's not as simple as what you look like, your beliefs, all of that. It's more about building that trusting relationship. So that being said, we'll go on to the next slide. So what are the youth saying about that? So it's someone who talks, not tells, right? It's somebody who like talks to them, genuinely tries to get to know them, and it's not somebody who is just telling them what they did or what they should do. It's somebody who is talking to them and is listening and engaging rather than lecturing and giving orders. It's someone who supports and encourages them. Youth are often unsure of their talents and interests and how to navigate social relationships. And so trusted adults help build their confidence, in their ability. We all need that. We all need the cheerleaders in our lives, and trusted adults often play that role. And it's also somebody who is a role model, right? It's somebody who they look up to, somebody who they maybe want to emulate pieces of, and helps them further develop themselves. And next slide, please. This is just a review of the ABCs that we talked about, or that was talked about in the video. So the ABCs are accessible. So again, that doesn't mean that they're accessible all the time. It doesn't mean that you're accessible 24 hours a day. It doesn't mean that that you have to have your cell phone number or all of that kind of stuff, but it means that they know how they can access you. So they know how to get in touch with you. They know how to reach out if they do need you. It is boundaried, so there's respect on both sides. There's space for the opinions and for their voices. And so it's really important for us to remember those boundaries. And some of the boundaries that we might have are boundaries that our organization puts on relationships between adults and youth. But it can also be our personal boundaries, of course, as well. And then caring. So again, we're interested and invested in the well-being and goals of the youth, but it is important that we're not just cheerleaders. We're pushing them outside of their comfort zone. We're challenging them. We're holding them to accountability. All of those things are very important. Next slide. So you might be like, okay, I want to be a trusted adult, or I want to help more people be trusted adults. And so what are the key characteristics of a trusted adult? We talked about the ABCs, but there's also these characteristics that we can definitely lean into and even do trainings around. So active listening. Again, we're listening to understand. We're listening without judgment or interruption. We're not checking our cell phones all the time or checking our watches. We're really tuned in. We're trying to be curious. We're trying to understand and take the young person's point of view. We're coming with empathy and compassion, demonstrating our understanding and care for their feelings. We're validating their emotions. We might be the only ones validating their emotions at that point. We're honest and vulnerable as well, right? And so it's really hard for young people to be honest and vulnerable if we're not also honest and vulnerable with them. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're telling them everything. Again, like, we need to have boundaries. We need to have boundaries in what we say and do. But we can be honest and upfront that, like, this isn't really something that I want to share with you right now, or this isn't really something that I'm comfortable sharing with you. That in itself is being honest and vulnerable. We're also consistent and reliable, right? And so consistency is key. They need to know that they can count on you. They also need to know that that when they come to you, that you will follow through in certain ways, both with your actions and your words. We're also confidential. And so really understanding what confidentiality means, what needs to be kept private, and what may need to be shared for safety. So again, we may have things that, because of our role in our organization, that we would have to share. And so being really upfront about that. And again, it's really, I know a lot of us have roles in which we are mandated reporters, that we have to have some of these conversations. And so I really like to reframe it as being mandated supporters, and we care enough about that young person that we will follow through and be reliable for them and consistent for them, and get them the help that they need in that. And again, we are respectful and non-judgmental. We are not judging anything that they're saying. It doesn't mean that you can't ask questions or anything like that, but we are not trying to fix them, right? Young people don't need us to come in and fix them. What they need is they want trusted adults to help them work through their issues in their own ways. So coming with no expectations on what young people will achieve or how they will behave is really important. And that can be often hard to like step out of that judgment, but it is very important. Okay, so we learned a little bit about what are trusted adults and some of the key characteristics. And now I want to talk a little bit about why it's important. So if you're using Love Notes, you know that there is the trusted adult component. And so obviously it's important for things like that. But it is also really, really important because it is the #1 factor of resiliency for young people. So resiliency is the ability to bounce back during life events, during trauma, and to really thrive in the world. And so there are lots of factors of resiliency, but the #1 is a presence of a loving and supportive adult. So in other words, of having a trusted adult. We may not be able to have a lot of control over, if we work in a community environment, we're not really going to have control over the school environment. We may not have control over parenting competency and parent well-being, or even their connection to faith and culture. Hopefully, we're helping with the self-perception and self-regulation skills, but we definitely can be that loving and supportive adult, or the caring and supportive adult. Okay, next slide. We also know that having a trusted adult improves mental health and well-being. So we are able to see that. We know that having someone to turn to who enables young people to explore their issues in a safe environment without judgment helps their mental health and well-being. It also helps mitigate the effects of abuse and trauma. Those with trusted adults in their lives can be more protected from long-term effects of adverse childhood experiences. So again, that's that resiliency factor. And it also has positive educational outcomes. We heard that again in the video, that we know that those that have a trusted adult, they are more ambitious in their educational expectation and goals because they have a positive role model. And before we go into the next slides, we can go to the next slide, but I'm going to present some data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2023. It can be hard data to kind of look at and to know, but it is really the crux of why youth need trusted adults now more than ever. And so what I would like you to think about is a normal class size of 25 students. This could be your program class size. This could be a school classroom, but I want you to think about 25 young people in your life, in your program, and we are going to look at some statistics for that. So next slide. So of those 25, 10 students said that they have experienced persistent sadness and loneliness for 2 weeks or more. So on that youth risk survey, 10 students out of that 25 said that they are experiencing persistent sadness and loneliness for 2 weeks or more. Next slide. And 5 to 6 students said that they have seriously considered suicide. Next slide. And 2 to 3 students have recently attempted to end their life. And next slide. So at best, so if that 10, the 5, and the 2 to 3 are all the same youth answering those same questions, at best this means that more than a quarter of students in our classrooms are struggling. And next slide. At worst, if those are all different youth answering those questions differently, that means that most of the students in our classrooms are struggling. And so when we look at this data, it really puts into perspective like how important mental health is, but also how important having someone to talk to, having someone who cares about you and can build your resiliency is, how important it is. And after we've looked at some of the importance of it, we're going to talk a little bit about the barriers to identifying a trusted adult. We can go to the next slide. So obviously we all know that there are, we've seen the impact, we know how important it is, we know what it takes to be a trusted adult, hopefully at least some of it. There's lots of skill building that we can work on from that. But what are the barriers? And so often teens may be hesitant to open up to adults. They might be scared of judgment or negative consequences, especially if they have, they might be afraid of what you will say to them about some of their mental health challenges, or they might fear being, having punishment on the disclosure of information being shared. They might have also had past negative experiences with adults, whether in school or at home or in the community, and that can lead to a reluctance to trust and from them to not want to seek further support from adults. You know, what happens to us in our past very much affects the future. And so if a young person had a prior negative experience with adult, it can very much cloud the future for them and make it really hard for them to trust again. They might also have a perception that adults are too structured or strict, and they might see adult relationships as very formal or time limited. They might not see it as a genuine connection. So they might feel like, oh, I'm only going to know this teacher for 1 year. I'm only going to be in this program for a couple of weeks. You know, it isn't as important for me to have a genuine connection with this person. Next slide, please. Can also be just that our young people could lack the communication skills to articulate their feelings or needs, making it challenging for them to communicate. They might not have access to the resources that could connect them to a trusted adult. They might not be able to be in the sports programs or the after school programs, or maybe they don't attend, you know, a church, have those kinds of connections where they might have more access to trusted adults. And there could be some social stigma with their peers where they feel like having a trusted adult or like trust in an adult is not really, maybe it wouldn't be cool, or, you know, it wouldn't be something that their friends would like or would like them to do. So they're a little bit shy about doing that. Next slide. And they might feel like a burden. So I think for a lot of even adults, like reaching out to our trusted peers, reaching out to other people for help can be really hard. They may feel like they are a burden to the people that they're reaching out to. I know that I talk about this a lot when I look to talk about mental health, and how, especially for us that are helpers, we often are the worst ones to ask for help when we need it. And so there is a little bit of a reframe that I like to introduce, in that most people like to help, right? And so if we are not asking for help, we're actually we're taking away that opportunity from our friends and our loved ones to be a helper. And so know that that doesn't really help with teens, but it does help with us adults. And I think it's worthwhile to mention that asking for help, is actually a it's actually a really important thing for us to be doing, and to not feel like it's a burden. There's also could be cultural and generational differences that could create barriers to communication and understanding between teens and adults. And I know I talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's not as important that you share all of the cultural background with the young people. You could look very different from a young person who has chosen you as their trusted adult. You could not have some of the same beliefs and things like that, but if you are still listening without judgment and doing all the other things, they could still see you as their trusted adult. But it is also very true that there are groups of young people that have less access and also report lower rates of trusted adults. And so those are BIPOC youth, also LGBTQ plus youth. I know in our program, our LGBTQ youth are much more likely to say that they don't have a trusted adult when they come into the program. It's actually one of the things that we really love, is that after being in our program, they do show that they have trusted adults after the program. And so it has really, really helped our young people to identify trusted adults. So again, that is really why we started looking into how we could help. And so next slide is really about overcoming these barriers. And so we are starting to host trainings on how to be a trusted adult. We've offered screenings of the resilience film that really offers a look at how having a trusted adult in your life can be a resilience building factor. And we're including trainings around active listening, around empathy, around boundaries, consent. And what we have found is that a lot of our I work at a YMCA, so a lot of our people who work directly with youth have a lot of these skills. However, the people that they see when they first come into the Y may not have the same skills. They may not have some of the same youth development skills. And so we're training our front desk staff, we're training our leadership, the people who maybe don't work with teens and young people all the time, so that they are actually could be a trusted adult as well. We're going to offer this to parents. We offer it to lots of different people. And again, active listening and may seem like a skill that most of us already know, but it can definitely be one that is new for some people, and one that we definitely need to teach. So this presentation is part of that I've just went over, is just a small piece of a larger presentation that we are doing to actually train our staff on how to be a trusted adult, how to be a caring adult for young people. And so I did go through most of the slides pretty quickly, so I've left plenty of time for questions. Kim or Rachel, do you know? Because I cannot see the questions, I don't think.
I'm here for you. I gotcha. Yeah, we'll give some time, because sometimes maybe we'll start typing them in towards the end of the presentation, but as you were going through, some questions popped up that I think might be helpful to explore a little bit more. I know you talked about confidentiality and the importance of confidentiality when being a trusted adult for these youth. I'm curious, you know, I love the mandated supporter versus reporter kind of language. I'm wondering if you have any other tips or ideas for making kind of that role and the responsibility around that role clear while not shutting down, you know, sharing from a young person, because I can imagine that might be a little intimidating at times.
Yeah, so I think it's, I mean, just being upfront in the beginning, just so that they know that there are things. And then if there is something that's shared, we do no choices. So this is something that I know is very important to you. We'd say something like this. This is something that, like, obviously is very important. This is something that we're gonna have to talk to your parents about, or, you know, whatever it is. And you know, do you want to talk to them with me, or do you want me to talk to them by myself? You know, do you want to be in the room? Do you want to be out of the room? Do you want to call them? Do you want to tell them at pickup? Do you want to talk to mom? Do you want to talk to dad? You know, so you're still giving them some autonomy and choices, but um, you're not giving them the choice of not telling, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really important. And so sometimes it's also hard. You don't know what might need to be, you know, it's hard to cover everything in confidentiality, but when it does come up, you know, you might have to talk about it then. What I always kind of say is, like, I'm going to have to keep you safe, whatever that means. Usually say, you know, if you're hurting yourself or hurting someone else, or have intentions to hurt yourself or someone else, it's kind of, it that could give you some wiggle room, you know, because you could say, you know, this, you know, the sentiments that you're saying are something that could hurt you, and so this is something that we have to tell your parents, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room.
Thank you. And as I said, here come the questions. They're flowing in. But somebody followed up kind of with that about the mandated supporter language and asked if you can go a bit further with that thought process, I guess, like how you got to mandated supporter versus reporter.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, one, they may not have trust in systems, they may not have trust in all of that, and so it really, mandated reporters are about getting resources for families. And so in a best case scenario, you know, you are supporting the families to get the resources that they need, whatever that may be. And so I can think of one specifically. Last year, there was an incident where we did have to report, but what ended up coming out of it was really beautiful, because the family ended up getting into family therapy. They got into individual therapy for all the kids. And a lot of it was around a tragic death that had happened in the family. And so without that report, or without that support, they wouldn't have gotten those things. And so it really is about us supporting our young people and our families. So
I love that. And like, kind of like what you're getting, I feel like reporter feels a little more threatening, whereas supporter, like you said,
yeah,
more accurately kind of reflects that role and what your goal is with this young
yeah.
person. So somebody asked, and you know, Kelly, consider it. Will there be a part 2, overcoming barriers to serving as a trusted adult? So maybe not next month,
Yeah,
but
I
maybe down
think,
the road.
yeah. So again, like, I have much larger training that I pulled this one down from, but there are lots of things that I think we can do at our organization to train staff to be more open to young people, be more non-judgmental, to really have some culture shifts around what is how we treat not just young people, but all people, really. But I think for a lot of our young people, they also feel like they're treated differently than adults are as well. So
I think you just said something that leads to the next question. So maybe we'll be offering a custom training via Kelly and the Y of Louisville, because somebody asked about ideas for training resistant adults who work with youth. You know, it says they're old school and they don't respect the ideas of the trainer or the needs of the student.
yeah, so training resistant adult, is that what you said, Rachel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have definitely, and I'm sure Rachel, you've run into this with Dibble trainings and stuff. So there are going to be resistance to trainings. And there are definitely going to be people who don't agree with the research and all of that kind of stuff. And I think at some point, if you are in the position to be able to do it, like this is the way that our organization believes, you know, and this is what you would need to do while you're at work, even if you're, you know, fake it till you make it kind of thing. But I also think that sometimes the most resistant people end up being the most bought in once they see that it works. Like some people are just they need to see the proof in the pudding, you know, before they actually trust it. And so they don't trust research, they don't trust all of that. But when they see it impacting teens, when they see, you know, it impact, I feel like that's when it helps. And also, if there's one person in a room of 30 and the other 30 are bought in, like they'll soon be really outweighed anyway.
That's a great point. I guess this is kind of similar in talking about framing things too. Somebody said, so Nicole said that they work with young adults or college students. So the idea of a trusted adult can be a little challenging because they are adults. So do you have suggestions for how to kind of frame that when someone's serving a slightly older population, I guess?
Probably say like a mentor or a trusted mentor or something like that. And, you know, even for our high school students and, you know, we work with some college students too, like we talk about, when we're talking about a trusted adult, we're not really talking about like your older sister that's, you know, a freshman in college and you're, you know, junior in high school. We're talking about somebody who has some of the things kind of figured out, right? So this is different than a friend, and it's different, doesn't mean that you are not going to still talk to your sister and still get her, but like a trusted adult or a mentor is a much different thing. And so we're not asking for peer-to-peer, we're not asking for that, we're asking for like a trusted adult or a trusted mentor. And so I think that that even applies, you know, if I'm looking at myself and I'm like, okay, where do I want to be? You know, I'm still looking for a mentor. And so hopefully that language would be agreeable for a young person.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. I think that's a great idea and suggestion. And I know sometimes, right, you think you have it figured out and then you find somebody else who is older or more experienced or whatever it might be, and you're like, I need you to kind of support me in whatever this might be, whether it's personal or professional. So that idea of a mentor is really helpful. We've got more people asking about the Resilience movie. Where that might be available. I think we would like to share it with folks, but maybe kind of how you use that too in your training for trusted adults.
Yeah, so Resilience is it's a documentary about ACEs and then overcoming the overcoming ACEs. So it's kind of a primer on what trauma is and what the ACEs are, but then also like how beneficial it can be to communities to really understand them and then start talking about them in schools, in medical providers, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a really good film. And what we normally do is we bought the rights to be able to show it, so we can show it at our organization, and then we show it and then have like a panel discussion usually. So we'll invite psychiatrists, we've invited teachers, educators, lawmakers, different people in the community to come out, and we'll have a panel discussion afterwards. So we'll have they have all of that stuff on the website once we got the rights to the film. And then we invite, community members, parents, all of that kind of stuff. So we've shown it at schools for like an after school event and done something very similar. But the after school, I think we just did a question and answers session with the parents kind of thing afterwards. But then we've done panel speakers as well. And both of those have really helped.
Scroll, sometimes I lose questions. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody here.
And I will, I'll make sure that Kim has that link to be able to share.
Awesome, which leads me actually to the next question of, I know you all do your trainings. I'm curious to know, are there any other, and we have the handout, which I encourage everyone to download again. If you miss it today, it'll be attached to the email that goes out with the recording. But any other resources that might be available that you think are helpful for folks, or films or things like that you might want to suggest as resources?
Yeah, so there's, I think if you're doing the healthy relationships, I mean, if you're here, Dibble, and if you're working in that round, there is definitely things out there. I think Love is Respect has really great resources for adults and caregivers, has really great resources for parents and like how to talk about relationships to young people, and I think that's really important. That would be one of my go-tos. NAMI is really great for mental health. They have a lot of information too about being a trusted adult and identifying trusted adults as well.
Awesome, thank you. So for everybody who's here and is excited and trying to write those down, we'll make sure that we get those links from Kelly and include those in the follow-up email, so that everybody has that too as an option. I'll give another minute or two to see if we've got any other questions. I think, like you said, Kelly, this is such an important topic. We know that the role that trusted adults play, and especially as people who are going out to facilitate the importance of their connections too with young people, even though they may be brief. So with that, I know sometimes organizations have facilitators that can act as trusted adults, and their time is brief, right? Depending on the circumstances that they're in. Are there any suggestions for, I don't know, maybe breaking down that barrier with a young person? If I may only be here for 10 sessions, but I'm here for these 10 sessions, because I know sometimes there are barriers, right, to their connection beyond the classroom and what that means. So any tips, I guess, for breaking down those walls too still?
Yeah, so one of the things that our facilitators have done is they're like, I can be your trusted adult during these 10 sessions, and hopefully then we can also grow your ability to then trust other adults, because if they have a positive experience with you for those 10 sessions, then hopefully they'll be better equipped to ask somebody else. And so you can say something like, I'll sit in for these and hopefully by the end we can identify somebody for you, or you can identify, because it's all about them identifying that person, and hopefully by that time too you'll have a better idea of their family dynamics. You'll have a better idea of, and you might say like, oh, you talk about Coach Joey all the time, or Coach Susie or whatever,
Yeah.
and do you think maybe they could be your trusted adult? And so sometimes maybe they don't see the connections that they have that you could maybe help them make.
That's a great idea and a great point. And even if it's a short connection, right, the benefit of showing them that there is somebody out there that is an adult that they can lean on and trust, and can talk to, it can be really powerful, even if it is a limited amount of time. Like you said, it kind of opens the door and maybe that perspective to others, maybe not even currently in their lives, but who may end up in their lives as someone they can rely on. I want to look
And
at
Rachel, I know you have a little bit that you want to say. I do have one more slide, and it's just like a final thought question.
Oh, go for it.
So it is, and again, you're not going to be able to necessarily answer this, but the one takeaway that I want you to think about too is like, what's one thing you'll do to become a more trusted adult with young people, or to pass along to somebody else to become a more trusted adult? So one thing that you'll take away. And then I'll hand it over to you, Rachel.
I would say, well, if you do want a couple of responses, people can reply into the Q&A. So we've got a minute. If somebody really wants to share, you can submit it into the question box and I can kind of read some of those responses out loud. But I think that's a great reflection item to end on, because obviously there were a lot of people who were very excited about this topic and interested. And I see some people sharing some resources in the question box as well, of different things that they have seen or come across. So somebody said, Judy said, take not tell. So a very good takeaway. And then Kim said, being more available to students. So we've got some folks starting to identify those things, and I think some maybe just kind of simmering on the idea. And I think sometimes too, a presentation like this can be really validating for the things that they are doing well, right?
Yeah,
and in addition to giving ideas to other things, sometimes you're like, okay, I am doing a good job, because it doesn't always, might not always feel like it in the moment. So some great reinforcement there. But okay, well, Kelly, I want to say thank you so much for being here with us today and presenting on, like I said, such a relevant and such a very important topic of exploring the importance of trusted adults. For those of you who asked about a part 2, keep your eye out. Maybe we can convince Kelly to do a part 2 for us down the road, or special training. So huge thank you again for joining us this July for our second Wednesday webinar. And thank you to everybody who joined us, whether you are new to the Dibble Institute and attended your first webinar, or for those of you who are repeat customers and come back to sit with us on these second Wednesdays. For those of you who don't know, there is a brief survey at the end of this webinar. We appreciate you taking some time to provide some feedback. It shouldn't take too long, less than 5 minutes. The webinar will be available on our website in 3 days or so, probably by next Monday. You can find that on our webinar archives. You also will be getting an email to the recording after the session once it's uploaded and available. If you have questions, please email us at relationshipskills@dibbleinstitute.org, or check out our website, dibbleinstitute.org. And we hope that you join us for our next month's webinar that will be on August 13th. It's From Adversity to Resilience, which I think kind of plays very nicely into Kelly's presentation today as well. So ACEs, PCEs, and the HOPE framework. So we hope to see you all there next Wednesday. Kelly, thank you again for joining us, and we hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you, everybody. Bye.